Welcome to Your Life Matters Soul Connection podcast with your host, none other than Junie Swadron. Today, I am absolutely so delighted to welcome my dear friend Megan Edge to join us, where we are going to have a conversation about health and healing and the philosophies of healing. And Megan is an extraordinary healer and educator. She has many courses and certifications where she certifies others to do the work that she does as a healer, as an empath, as a someone who knows how to gather the energies from the trees and the forest and all the medicine that is offered there and put these most magnificent medicines together for us, and knows intrinsically what they mean, because she had the joy and privilege of growing up partly with where you are now. I believe I'll talk to you about that now in a moment. Megan lives in Victoria, British Columbia, but also not far from here is a beautiful island called Maine Island, Mayne, where I think you learned from your dad a lot about the medicines of the land and the sea. So, Megan, welcome.
Thank you, Junie. I'm so happy to be here. This is, in a way, a dream come true, because you and I have talked for quite a while about working together collaboratively to bring the work that we do into the world. And this is a beautiful platform to start that with. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you are here. So I mentioned a little bit just in the intro, without going through everything that you offer in specifics. So I'd be happy at any time through our conversation today that those things be mentioned, so people know on a more formal way of what you're offering. But also, let's go back. I mean, you are a healer, and do you think you were born that way? Do you think it's a nature nurture? How do you feel you resonate to? Well, obviously you resonate with what you are doing. Do you feel that you were just born into that part of you that's just always embraced what's possible in a human being? And yeah, you get where I'm going.
I love this question. I love this question. And it's not only what's possible in a human being for me, it's what's possible for all living things. And I'll share a story with you. When I was really, really, really little, and this is one of my earliest memories, is we would get these huge rainstorms in Montreal when I lived there, and the worms. Actually, not just in Montreal, Vancouver as well, because that's where I was born. When we get these heavy rains, the worms would come to the surface of the grass and they would wiggle their way around, trying to escape the water. And they'd often end up on the sidewalk. And in Montreal, especially if you know Montreal weather in the summertime, huge rainstorm and then boom, it's done. And sun comes out and everything dries up really quickly, including the worms that are stuck on the sidewalk. So I'm this little girl scurrying around, saving the worms and back on the grass.
Oh my gosh.
Collect before they dry up. So when you ask the question, have I always been a healer? Yes.
You and I are so joined at the hip. I remember that from Toronto, and the same story. And when I first moved to Vancouver, there were the slugs.
Oh, yes.
And, right? Yeah. And even though they were creepy to me and they're ugly, I'm sorry, beautiful slugs, and whatever, I would see them on the path where people are going to be just walking on them, not knowing, because they blend in with the black and earth and everything. Mm-hmm. I'd be, and putting them into moving them out of the path and out of the way of sudden trample to death.
Yes, and it's interesting as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the types of people that are in the world, and there's the type of person who, when they see the spider, even if they don't like spiders, but they see the spider on the wall or in their house somewhere, they go and they get the cup and they get the piece of paper and they put it over and they gently put the paper under and they take it outside and they, oh, okay, but I'm good, I saved the spider, or the moth, or the little bird that's hit the window, or whatever it is. And then there are the people who either just don't even see the creatures, they're not on their radar whatsoever, or they see them and just smack. And I'm not saying that one person is better than the other. It's just that that's a different type of approach to life in general. And my feeling and my experience, especially when I've taught so many people over the years to bring out and harness their own healing skills, is that those that save the spiders are the ones that have the empathy, naturally have the empathy. Those that either don't see the spiders or smack the spiders, they can learn empathy, but it may not be at the forefront for them. It might not be the first place they go to when they think of how to help themselves or how to help others. And that's simply an observation, right? There's no judgment around that. It's just, this is what I've observed in my years of doing it.
Yeah, I don't get that there's a judgment, and I really like the way that it makes sense to me that yes, it can be learned. I think that healing is oh, hello, healer. There is Frankie. Oh my goodness.
Thank you for showing up, Frankie. Here, I'll just
Oh yeah, hello, sweetheart. Oh, hi.
She's my
Oh,
little energy healing dog.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We love Frankie. Yes. Frankie, what would you like to talk about today?
Just want to be near my mommy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, who would blame her? So, Megan, being on Main Island right now, is this where where the natural part of who you already are became even more developed? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. This would be the nurture part of my growing up. I was so fortunate. I am so fortunate to have grown up in a foraging family. A mother and father who loved nature, loved being out in nature, and more than that, wanted to understand nature and how it can be a part of us and how it can support us. So I grew up learning how to harvest oysters, how to dig clams, how to go out into the forest in the springtime and find the fiddleheads and recognize them and know how to not only harvest them, but then how to cook them and prepare them afterwards. And it's just simply in my blood. So when I walk through the forest, I don't just see the green. And I don't only see the forest for the trees. I see what the trees can do for us. I see what the moss can do for us, what the lichens can do for us. I understand that there is medicine all around us, and it supports us at the physical level, and it supports us at the emotional and the spiritual level. And there's this whole thing right now about forest bathing, or right now, it's been around for a while. Forest bathing or earthing is another one. You take your shoes off and get your feet in the ground and feel the grass and the mud and everything. And I chuckle because for me, well, that's a no-brainer. Why do you need to go forest bathing? It's a walk in the woods.
Right, exactly. And I tell you, well, for sure, it would be a no-brainer for you, for someone who grew up that way.
Right.
For a city girl like me, Torontonian, but gravitated to the West over 20 years ago, but it took me 30 years going back and forth before I got here. A little slow. But I would find nature wherever I went, no matter where I've ever been. But one of the things that I just somehow it's so, I don't know what it is. Maybe you can help me here. Sometimes I feel at the end of a long day, and especially over this last year and a half on Zoom and being in front of a screen for hours and hours and hours and hours, at the end of the day, oh my gosh, I just want to crawl into bed. I'm so tired. I just want to either take a Epsom salts bath and go to sleep. But when I make a healthier choice, and I can't believe I even have to think twice about it, but I do, and sometimes I choose not to do this. But when I do get out of the house, because I am so blessed to live right around the corner from one of the most beautiful parks on the ocean, through a forest trail, I am suddenly awake. I mean, my tired, exhausted, heart, whole body, mind, energy, it just wants some rest. What is it about the trees and the forest and the sea or the life like this that just rejuvenates me? I don't have to think about it. Well, maybe if I stay here in forest bathe for half an hour, I'll get no. It just is like an infusion. Yeah. And I'm only there for a minute or two before I just feel awake again.
And what you're feeling isn't all in your head. What you're feeling is It's very, very real. And this is the beauty about something like forest bathing, where a practice of just going for a hike and walking in the forest has become something that is supported by medical science, by psychological sciences. We understand so much more now about how the forest operates as a collective, how the trees communicate with one another. This is not woohoo. This is grounded understanding and scientific information that we now can appreciate. The forest, the trees actually exude like pheromones. That would be a way to describe it. When the trees are communicating with each other, and we can see this now with the various cameras that we have created, the technology that we've created, we can see that they will exude clouds of pheromones as a way to communicate with one another. We see that, or we feel that in our bodies when we walk into a forest. We also recognize now that there's an electromagnetic force or force field that comes off of all living things. So when you step up to a huge tree that's been around for 1,000 years, you're also stepping into that tree's force field.
Wow.
And unless the trees feel threatened for some reason, they're going to welcome you into their biome. You become part of the community and the collective that these trees are participating in. And we now understand that as well. You know, we used to have an idea that the forest was a place of competition, that nature is a place of competition. It's constantly prey or be preyed on. And that's very much an anthropomorphizing of the natural world that we as human beings do in order to validate the way we behave. But what the science tells us is, in fact, a forest is a collective, right down to the ground, to the bugs in the ground, to the bacteria in the ground, to the mycelium in the ground, the mushrooms, the funguses, the lichens, the trees themselves, the animals. It's all part of this intricate communication system. And even as I'm saying that, I'm getting my goosebumps, like my whole body.
I am too.
Right? Because it's so true. It's so true. And when we walk into a forest or on a beach, or we just get out of the concrete jungle that we've created, and we step back into the environment that we evolved in, there's a collective breath, I think, that happens. I certainly know that I feel it. And when I take people on forest walks and we go into the woods as part of the training that I offer to people, I watch energy just sloughs away from them. Tension sloughs off their body as they step onto that pathway or onto the moss or into the trees. I can feel it just as I talk about it. And then, you know, this is about the philosophy of healing. It's how can we create healing for ourselves? Well, step into the forest, go back to the natural environment, whether that's just a park in your neighborhood or it's an actual beautiful forest that you have the opportunity to be in. Remember that connection that we have with the natural world, and your healing begins in that very moment.
It truly does. I mean, if the days that I am so tired and I choose to go to sleep, or think I do before, I don't anyway, because my mind is chattering 1,000,000 miles an hour with the whole day. So it's really a no-brainer to just put on my walking shoes and go around the corner and say, thank you, God, for this magnificent place, this opportunity to just go and be healed and be rejuvenated and be quiet and welcome in the birds and every living organism, as you say, and welcomed by the trees communicating and bringing them into their home. I mean, wow. You know, when I think of it the way you described it, it's the ancestry of, 1,000-year-old trees or 500-year-old trees or whatever it happens to be. Wow, incredible. And as you're talking about it too, we have so much to learn from nature. We think we need to be competitive when that is so not right. Just say it outright. That is so wrong. We're here to cooperate.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that is one of my philosophies of healing, is the collaboration and cooperation versus competition. And this was something that came to me really early on as I stepped into my role of healer with a capital H, as opposed to, I'm just going to not just save the worms, but I'm going to save the worms as a kid. It's the idea of allowing ourselves to be responsible, or to take responsibility for our own healing. Right. And so When I say to my whole body, I'm going to step into the forest today, I'm going to go for a walk today, I'm going to put around in my garden today, I'm giving signals to my body that it's okay to allow healing to happen. It's okay to support myself in a really beautiful, positive way. And if that is having a bath at the end of the day with Epsom salts and a few essential oils, awesome. That's beautiful. I think that's a fabulous day. Absolutely. I love doing that. And then I have my glass of wine, my homemade wine that I make with my berries and all the things that I foraged. And I sit in that beautiful water and I feel that healing as well. It's really, for me, it's about the communication between myself and my body. And that is for me the highest form of cooperation versus competition. When I first started offering healing programs and workshops and things like that, I had a number of people say to me, yeah.
I'm sorry, I just need to reflect on what you just said for 1 second.
Yeah.
And that is the cooperation within myself, within me and my own body, within which I will cooperate with the natural everything that my body will do, and giving myself permission for that to happen. I'm just kind of taking in all of that, because for you it's so natural. It's just another healing tool along the gazillion that you have that you're going to share with us. But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just needed to take that in, because it's so true. I feel like I'm at war half the time with my very own body because of the things that I'm choosing or not choosing.
Right.
When that doesn't have to be that way. When it just starts, it's not just a mental.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the word is, but something that I just, think about, or no, it's a full embracing. That in the cooperation, within that umbrella of what does cooperation mean, not just in society or the trees communicating with each other and all of nature, but just within me, myself.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that too. That's a great, can we go down that rabbit hole for a moment?
Please.
Let's expound on that.
Okay.
So, okay, we were in the macro, we were looking at the forest and the cooperation and the collectivism that we now understand is part of the whole science of a forest and the spirituality of a forest. And then take that analogy into the body. If you are a tree, if you are the tree, you are cooperating with all the other trees around you. So that's all the other people around you. You're in a cooperative, whether you know it or not. But when you know it, then you can be in it with intention. And then bring it into the micro, bring it into your own body. Your body consists of these amazing tissues and veins and blood cells and all kinds of incredible things are happening in your body at a microscopic level that allows you to be in your body. And for me, I see it as a symbiotic relationship. My body has its own intelligence. It is its own energy system. It is its own thing, its own life force, its own physicalness. And then there is my soul, or my identity, or my idea of myself, which at a very fundamental level is that relationship between me and my body. So when you talk about often feeling like you're at war with your body, that's something that culturally, I feel that our culture supports that idea that we are at war with our body. We are under attack. If our body fails us in some way, we get sick, we get cancer, something happens to us, we get an injury. Our teachings in our culture at a very unconscious level is that we are being attacked from without into the within, right? One of my philosophies of healing is that when we understand that we are ultimately responsible for our own bodies, body systems, relationship with our bodies, and how we have allowed or needed our bodies to carry our wounding for us, then we have a starting point. And we can create a new relationship with our bodies. Because the fact of the matter is we're in them for the whole time that we're here. We might as well have a good relationship with them.
How do we begin to cultivate that?
Beautiful question. One of my favorite exercises that I give to clients sometimes, especially if if the situation is around body image as it relates to physical experiences that may have experienced, like if it's a sexual assault, for example, that creates a very specific kind of energy pattern in our body. And it creates a disconnect between our body, because quite often at a very deep level, the belief is, the feeling is that our body let us down because it allowed this to happen to us. And then there's all the shaming that gets layered on top of that as our culture deals with that sort of experience. So I encourage my client to take off all their clothes and stand in front of a full-length mirror and fall in love with their body. See every part of their body, see their elbow and see their back of their knee and see their underarms and see the tips of their fingers as it is reflected in this mirror, and allow themselves to grieve the relationship that they have had with their body, the experiences that their body has held for them, so that a new kind of relationship can be fostered and can be built between themselves and this beautiful vessel that's taking them through life. And to begin to understand that the pain that their body feels is something that their body is carrying for them. And their body needs to be nourished and held and seen in all of its glory, if it is to support the intelligence of the soul as it moves through this life with these amazing experiences that we have. And when I say amazing, I don't mean they're all wonderful. I just mean that they're amazing at that level. And so that's one way that we can.
That's really beautiful. And I can see that it can be that very challenging.
Very challenging.
Depending upon the severity of the wound.
Yeah.
For, I know for years I hated my body. I still have this push pull whatever because of my earlier experiences with abuse, sexual abuse, other abuses, etc. That, and I think you're right. And then society, unconscious, I'm glad you used that word, has a way of making it, if you're not the right size and you're not, the right look and you're whatever, well, do they ever have a product for you? And right. And if you just do this or you have the right beer, I don't think they have beer commercials anymore. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe with cigarettes they stopped, before it was like really cool, let's drink, let's look cool or whatever. They'd have the mountaineer on the horse and I don't know. But the images that have been fed to us, which is impossible to keep up with, the magazine covers, everything. So just that in itself, and then a body that you want to hide and feel shame. I was at one time 80 pounds heavier than I am now or more. And in an unconscious attempt to protect myself. I didn't know at the time. I learned later that was what I was doing, was protecting myself. Nobody will be attracted to me if I'm 185 pounds. And that it was also a way of instant gratification, a way of just being able to self-soothe.
Yeah.
So the things that we do, not out of contempt for our body, but often in contempt for ourselves, all the layers of shame and guilt and blame. And so what you're suggesting here, standing naked in front of a mirror to start to embrace our body and acknowledge and love every part of it is huge. And it seems somewhat easier in my mind when I think that the body has had to carry that for us.
Yes.
And so this again is like, you're not alone, body. I'm finally here as your ally.
Yes.
I'm with you. I thank you.
Yeah.
I'm, for everything you do that I don't have to think about. I don't have to think about breathing right now. You're doing that for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
All my organs, you're doing all that. Well, I don't even know what you're doing exactly, but you're doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like really honoring in a way that most of us don't think about.
And I think one of the reasons we don't think about, or I know one of the reasons we don't think about it, is because we're not taught about it.
No.
From a very early age in our culture, we are taught to be ashamed of our bodies. For the most part, at very few families do little children grow up being celebrated for themselves, just being celebrated for who they are and being acknowledged and unconditionally loved for who they are and how they're showing up in the world. If a child has that experience, they're going to carry that into their adult lives, and they're going to embody a confidence that it can't be taught necessarily. It can be learned. And there's a difference between being taught and being learned, and we can look at that later on. But it can be healed if a child has grown up and has not had that experience. That wound can be healed, and and one of the ways that we can heal that wound is through the relationship that we will cultivate as adults with the adult body that we have. And then that enables us, once we are in a powerful relationship with our adult body, we can then go back into our child memories and our child body, and we can do that healing work with the help of the adult body.
I love that work. I love inner child work. And this is another aspect of it.
Absolutely.
This is another way of just really nurturing that little kid. So eventually that little girl in us, and little boy and a little man can begin to start to feel safe in the world, knowing that the adult self, the one that somehow survived everything that's ever happened,
that's right,
is now paying attention.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
the soul retrieval work that I do.
The soul retrieval. Oh yes, please tell us about that.
So there's lots of philosophies around trauma and PTSD and the ways in which we can be really deeply wounded. And mainstream psychology calls it post-traumatic stress syndrome, and in many cases has a belief and understanding that it's a permanent condition, that once you are so deeply wounded that you're getting triggered and you're having all of these experiences that we call PTSD, the best thing that can happen for someone is to find the proper medication and support that they need. And that works for a lot of people, and that's great. I'm not putting that down in any way, shape, or form. But what I have seen is that when somebody comes to me and they've had that experience and they've gone through the mainstream route, they've gotten as good as they can get with those modalities. But what's missing from that modality is the spiritual aspect of this, is the soul aspect of this. In soul retrieval work, what we're understanding is that when someone goes through a traumatic experience and traumatic event, if healing is not made available or can't happen in that moment, a little piece of the soul, of the energy of the individual, stays behind at the scene of the crime, as it were, in the energy field, and holds on to that experience until such time as the individual is willing and able or capable of doing the deeper spiritual healing around that event. So with soul retrieval, what we work with, or what I work with, is the adult and myself, so my client and myself. We go back to the moment of the event together through visualization processes, and we as the adults confront the experience, the people who were involved in that experience, in defense of the child or the young adult, or however old the person was when this experience happened, to be there for them in a way that the other adults in their life were not able or capable of being there for them. And through a process of visualization and prompts and so forth, we defend, we say no to the people or to the event as it's happening, we dissipate that energy, and we bring the little self back into our energy field, and we bring them back to the present moment, so that the event is a part of their story and their experiences, but it no longer defines their sense of themselves.
Right, and are not triggered in the same way anymore.
Right? Exactly. So they can see something similar and feel the distance between themselves and that event, or they can have the memory of the experience and be able to speak of it as this is an event that happened to me in my life.
Right, no longer defines them, as you said.
But no longer defines them. It's very, very powerful and very potent work.
I had something similar years ago. I had always wanted children, and it didn't happen. And there were, I had pregnancies, and they didn't result in full term deliveries. And there was tremendous pain and angst because I always wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And at one time, when I was studying to be a therapist, this was over 30 years ago, and I had this meltdown after another miscarriage. I a friend and somebody incredibly enlightened asked me if I wanted to do something similar that you're talking about, and it was a ceremony.
Mm.
And 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 we did this ceremony, and it was a spiritual ceremony, an energetic, where called in the spirits of the entities of the body of the souls, right?
Mhm.
And the healing was so deep and so pure, and I was able to release and talk about what I would have been like had they been born, and what I would have been as a mother. And I was able to shed the pain and the sadness and the grief that I was holding
Yeah.
for what, because it will never happen in my mind. It will never happen. Well, it didn't. But the point is, in that way, well, I've been blessed with many children in my life. Um, and, but at the end of that ceremony, the grief that I was holding for years just left. I would be able to go to a park and see moms and dads and the little kids playing and everybody together. And I said, oh, how beautiful, without the yearning, wish
Mhm.
that was me.
Yeah.
It stopped.
Yeah.
There's such powerful work on that level that you do, and that I was fortunate enough to have someone back then. And I know that kind of work at that, to be able to, I think maybe it's because you give permission for the soul, the spirit, the every part of the experience
Mhm.
to have its voice, have its
Yeah.
release.
And that word is so important, permission, because we are denied in our culture. We're often denied the ability to do the processing of the experiences that we've had. Stiff
Right.
upper lip and all that. My heritage is British and Scottish and Irish and Protestant. I didn't grow up in a religious household, but that was the history. That was the ancestry. Was the Protestant stiff upper lip, and especially on the British side of things. Good Lord, you don't talk about that. You just get on with it. Right? And I know my mother, bless her, struggled so hard in her life to be the perfect daughter, the perfect mother, the perfect wife. And to be the perfect mother, daughter, and wife means you don't process anything. You don't talk about your own problems. You just carry on. And that destroyed her, as it destroys millions of people around the world who have that philosophy of healing, really, which is you just don't talk about it. Well, where does it go? Right?
Right.
Where does all
In your
that energy
cells.
go? Where do those feelings go? They go into your cells, exactly. And eventually they result in illness and injury. That is one of my philosophies of healing. I mean, I suppose you could call that the philosophy of wounding. And where does the wounding come from? Well, the wounding comes from our beautiful, amazing, incredible bodies doing the very best they can to hold on to what we are not able to process in the moment or for decades or lifetimes afterwards,
Right.
until such time as we are. And
Right.
it results in the body breaking down eventually. Honestly, it's not old age that breaks down our bodies. We could happily move into our 90s and be perfectly healthy, and we know people who can do that, and we know cultures where that is the expectation. That's not the expectation in our culture. And our culture is really good at compartmentalizing our experiences between the physical and the emotional. First of all, no connection. I mean, medicine is starting to understand there is a connection. That's what the whole stress thing is about. But
Yay for rocket science. Sorry.
yeah, I'm not sure that actually, I am sure that in medical education, mainstream medical education, that's not a course that gets taught in most
Either is,
universities.
yeah, medical education, either is nutrition.
No, no. So
That, that, that,
this is really
what?
important because what we're taught, not no. So someone who wants to become a doctor is taught this, but we're also taught it through osmosis in our own upbringing. Is that the body is a closed system. It doesn't communicate within itself, and it doesn't communicate with other bodies. That is really disassociative. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now. Because what it does is creates a belief that you and I are not connected in any way, shape, or form. And that's not true. It's just not true. Of course we're connected. If we're sitting in a room with one another, we are in each other's energy.
Exactly. We don't have to say a word.
Yep. We're in each other's chemical brew in the body, for that matter. We understand about pheromones and hormones, that these are things that come off of our bodies. We can't see them or taste them or feel them, but well, sometimes we can smell them with pheromones. But we know that this is what happens. So when we're in communication with one another, if we're in a loving communication with one another, that's just going to build us up, and we're going to be feeling so good when we leave each other's company. But if we're in a toxic or an angry energy with one another, that's going to actually affect our cells as well, and it's going to lower our vibration. And again, that's not hoo-hoo. This is science now, people. It's going to lower our vibration. It's going to lower our immune system. It's going to leave us susceptible to the viruses and bacteria that are floating around all over the place all the time, and we're going to get sick. Right? This is how
So what?
powerful emotions are.
Yeah. No, this is so, I love how this conversation is moving into these very real places that most of us don't think about, because
Mm-hmm.
we just wake up and we're doing our day, right?
Yeah.
But our body's doing our day.
Yeah.
You know, we inhabit that, our souls inhabiting that body that's doing our day.
That's right.
And I've never really looked at it that way. Well, maybe I have from time to time. I've had that awareness, but I'm going to have it a lot more now because I want to.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to. And I want to be friended even more than I have,
Mhm.
because it's so important
Yeah.
in so many ways. So how do people begin that process? And I mean, you to recognize, I mean, there's so many things, you know, we're talking about the relationship between people, that
Mhm.
even that our bodies speak to each other. We don't think about that. So say there's somebody who is in this, you know, they're having an argument. You're having an argument with your boss. You're having an argument with your partner. You're having an argument with your best friend, your sister, somebody.
Yeah.
And you're just, you know, you'd rather be right than happy. And I
Mhm.
certainly have been there before. Don't
Yeah.
talk to me about happy. I'm right. You know, I want to be both. Okay. I want to be happy and be
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But what do people do? What would you suggest when there's not a Megan right there in front of them, or another healer to help them move and navigate through what they usually do, which is just either be defeated, fine, walk away, angry, sad,
Yeah.
or you know, you're going to get back, you're going to get even, or you're just going to become more of that victim of circumstances that you learned when you were a kid.
So every tool that you need to navigate any moment of your life, you have at your disposal within your own body. You don't actually need anything else beyond what is right here and present for yourself. And the most powerful tool that you have is your breath. I love breath work. Breath work is so powerful, and no one can take that away from you. They can take away your pendulum, and they can take away your pills, and they can take away anything else that they want to, but they can't take away your breath. So what I teach people is how to, first of all, recognize how they're breathing, become aware and conscious of the power of their breath, and then use their breath to move emotion and energy through their system. And this is not new. I didn't invent this. This is millions, well, I would say millions of years, but certainly, you know, tens of thousands of years of human evolution. Our breath is what keeps us alive. Our breath is what gets shut down too when we are in a constant state of stress or we feel like we're constantly under attack. So start to notice, how are you breathing? Are you breathing shallow? Are you breathing up here? Are you breathing fast because you're feeling anxious? And just observe it. All of the work that I do is about not judging ourselves and giving ourselves permission and space. Really.
Right.
Right. Now,
Mhm.
in the moment, and I completely get this and recognize this, and I've certainly been in that moment too. Please don't think that I don't fall into all of this as well. I absolutely do. In the moment, when we go into flight or fight, and that's what happens when we're in an argument or that we feel that we're under attack, we go in defense mode. Everything clenches in our bodies, including our breath, and we go into shallow breathing like this, right? But if you can teach yourself, train yourself, get into the habit of noticing before it shows up, what it is that is about to show up, you can take that breath. You can just stop, even if that person's right in your face and yelling at you, and just do one of those. And I
That would be,
guarantee immediately the other person's going to be going, what just happened?
yeah, really.
Why are you
Excuse me,
breathing?
I called a war and you didn't come.
That's right. You're not playing my game with me.
Yeah, right.
It does
Yeah.
take practice. It is not easy always to remember in that moment, because we get into a snap reaction. What I teach people and what I work with myself is, what is my reaction and what is my response? What you get really good at when you practice this is to recognize, am I reacting in this moment or am I responding in this moment? The reaction is the immediate, you go right into defense mode, bring it on kind of a thing, or flight or fight, or instant anger, or all of those reactions. And these are not bad reactions. They're just reactions. And sometimes they're life-saving reactions. So let's be really clear about that, right?
Mm.
What is a reaction? What is a response? A response is where you have a moment to reflect on, how do I wish to respond? A response allows for choice, for you to be conscious of the choices you're making in that moment. Am I choosing to respond by being angry? And is that okay in this moment? Is that appropriate? It might be. I'm choosing to step back. It's a response allows choice. A reaction is more of an instinctual, immediate, this is how I have to be in this moment. Right. So it's really just about learning the difference and then deciding, how am I going to be in this moment?
Well, I think that's a wonderful tool for almost everything.
Yes.
Right. I really do. I mean, first
Mhm.
of all, the breath, that is it's the number one tool I feel as well, because it will bring our own, I think, energy field into a more homeostasis, a more balanced place, which will de-escalate the reaction, as opposed to there won't be room for a response when we're just ready to explode. So so learning that kind of breathing at any time, right? I think will help that practice. You don't have to be, like you say, don't wait for the argument, or right, don't anticipate that. Maybe just to know how to do it beforehand. Is there a difference for you with breathing in, like nostril breathing, or breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, or in and out through your nose? Do you find there's a difference?
There's a whole science around breathing. It's so fascinating. How
Yes.
we breathe in our bodies. What we breathe through one nostril for a while, and then our body switches over and we breathe through the other nostril.
So many ways.
Yeah, so many ways. And there are, I don't know, would you call them breath scientists? I don't know. But certainly the yogis and the shamans and the alternative healers who are consciously working with breath, there's lots of beautiful techniques to it. I like to keep my healing practice simple and straightforward. I find that that's where the biggest miracle healings happen, is when we keep it simple. It's the KISS philosophy, which is keep it simple, soul sister.
Oh, I love that, soul sister. Yay, you reframed it. Good, thank you.
Totally reframe. I love to reframe. Keep it simple, soul sister, because I know how immediate our healing can be. And yes, we can take time and we can have ritual, we can do all of that, and that's beautiful. Awesome. But here's the thing, and I'm using but really specifically here. Somebody decides they're ready to heal. Let's get it done. Let's do it. Let's do it. If you're done with everything that you've been living with to this moment and you're willing to acknowledge it, accept it, release it, let's let her go. So that's where the breath can be really, really powerful. The technique that I work with is this. You inhale through your nose as deep and big as you can. You expand your belly, your diaphragm, everything. You just let it all hang out in that huge inhale. And as you're inhaling, you're saying to yourself, to your body, to yourself, I acknowledge, I accept. I acknowledge and I accept this moment. I acknowledge and I accept what I'm feeling in this moment, whether it's a trigger response and you're remembering something or you're actually in the moment itself. I simply acknowledge and I accept it. And then you exhale through your mouth. All the way, all the way, all the way, all the way until there's nothing left. And as you're doing that release, you're saying, I release, I let it be. So I acknowledge and I accept on the inhale, and I release and I let it be on the exhale. There's something really
Beautiful.
powerful about words, right? Words have vibration. We know this. We understand this now. Again, there's science, but there's also the woohoo around all of that. I acknowledge and I accept these are high vibration words. And you're giving yourself permission. There's that word again. You're giving yourself permission to simply feel what you're feeling, be who you're being in that moment. It's okay to just be there. And then on the exhale, you're giving yourself permission to release it, whatever your body needs to release in that moment. And I recommend to my clients you do that 3 times in the moment to really anchor it in your body. And then you do it as many times as you need to until you feel the energy dissipate and you're back grounded. And it could be 30 times. I've done it 30 times. The first time I discovered this, actually, I did it about 30 times. I almost passed out.
Oh, that's a different kind of breathing.
But that's what it took for my whole
Right.
okay, we've shed it.
Right.
It's really powerful.
Oh, it is. It totally is. And you're right. We don't need to do anything other than we've got it right here in our body, our breath.
Yeah. It can be that.
That's right. It's like, oh, where will I go? Who will I be? And how will I do this? Breathe, conscious breath.
Breathe.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So I think it's important today, especially now, where, we've been in lockdown for over a year and a half, or about a year and a half now with COVID. And I think a lot of people have had to, we've had to reevaluate what's important and what's not important, and everything that we got used to got stripped away. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but at first it can be shocking.
Yes.
And for some, it could still be shocking when we don't, learn to sail with the tides. But at the same time, because there's been so much controversy about what is COVID or what's happening or what, on so many levels, when we're talking about what our discussion today and healing, and we're talking about alternative healing, and we're talking about Western medicine, where I think it's important to bridge in a way that is finding the best in both. But can I hear what your take on this is?
So one of my really important or really fundamental philosophies of healing is the bridging between modern medicine and alternative healing. Both have a place in our overall well-being. There's so many incredible advances, incredible research that's being done, new awarenesses, new understandings in mainstream medicine and mainstream medical science. And I want to be very clear with the audience. I am not against mainstream medicine at all. I would not be sitting here right now having this conversation with you, Junie, if it were not for modern medicine. I've had 17 surgeries in my life, and some of them were life-threatening, and some of them I almost did not come back to this mortal coil. And for not having modern medicine, I wouldn't be here. I also wouldn't be here if it weren't for alternative medicine, what we now call alternative medicine, but which actually has been our medicine for our entire evolution until about 100 years ago in the Western world. And certainly other parts of the world are very integrative between what we call alternative and what we call modern medicine, where the bridge is built. It's never actually been not built, right? There are countries where, yes, you get your antibiotics and you get your pain medication, you get your prescription, and you're also prescribed energy healing techniques, and you're prescribed breath techniques, and you're prescribed this herb and that plant medicine and this essential oil. There's never been a disconnect between those modalities that here in the West and Western, especially North America, we have created such a divide. That bridge is so important. Like, bring it on. I am open to having any discussion with any mainstream medical practitioner about what is also possible in addition to, and in fact, the perfect example of that is my elderly neighbor right now over here on Maine. She's gone through one bout of cancer. She went through the chemotherapy and the radiation. That nearly killed her, no word of a lie. And But she needed that. Like that was the prescribed course of action. In addition to that, I've been working with her over the last year and a half with the plant medicines, with the essential oils, with nutrition, looking at lifestyle, looking at where did this come from and what can we heal in the intelligent body at the emotional and energetic level to help with the mainstream treatments that she is being given. Like at no point did I ever say to her, don't do what your doctors are telling you to do and just do this because this will save you. No, it's working with. And, on either side of that bridge, you get the extremists. I've met them both. I've met the extremist who says, don't even take a Tylenol. And I've met the extremist on the other side who said, I can't even talk to you if you're going to talk about nutrition. Right? Like I've met them both.
Right.
That the reason we're building a bridge is because there's a space to meet in the middle.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Where the
Yes.
ultimate well-being of the client or the patient is what we're focusing on, not whether my treatment is going to save them or their treatment is going to save them or I'm right or they're like, that's not the conversation we need to be having right now. It really is about building bridges. So for me, that's a fundamental part of my healing philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the whole picture and work with the whole picture.
Well, it's all about collaboration, isn't it?
Yes.
Making healthy choices, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that people can be healed for good? Like, does healing last? I mean, what's your take on that?
Yes, and yes.
Oh,
I absolutely fundamentally believe that permanent and lifelong healing can happen. Our bodies, our minds, our souls are so incredibly resilient. I love that word. They're resilient. And they want to be in a state of balance. Your body wants to be in a state of balance. Your body wants to be healthy so it can do the best job it knows how to carry you through this life and with the decisions and choices that you're making for the experiences that you're having in this life. It's not against you, it's for you. Mm-hmm. So in the same way that a break can heal, and there will still be a mark on the bone that we can see after someone dies. We exhume the body and we can see, oh, yep, that person broke their arm. And we can even tell by the age of the bone and when it happened, or we can tell when that break happened. Right. And the arm healed. The arm still worked. It still functioned. The body healed itself. The bones knitted back together. Right. In the same way, we can knit back together our souls and our emotional bodies. I know this to be true. I know it from my own experiences, and I know it from the work that I do with clients. I've watched people have miracle emotional healings. I've watched their face change, their whole energy field change, everything change in a moment of acknowledgement or recognition of how they've been telling their story and the way in which they've let that story define them. But in a reframe, in a new way of looking at it, in a perspective, that can heal in that moment. And then there's the process of integration of the new sense of self. Right. And we know the healing has happened. I get this question a lot. How do I know that I've been healed? It's when you're no longer triggered by the thing that needed healing.
Right. Right. Oh my God. Someone so looked at me like that, and I didn't even notice.
Right. The same situation shows up, the one that's always been there, like your mother is still being your mother, and you're not triggered into the old response that you had towards that conversation. That's when you're healed. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And it is a hallelujah.
It is a hallelujah. And here's the most important thing, Junie, for me in the work that I do. The most important thing. The client is the one doing the healing. Right. I am not healing them. I may create space for that healing to happen. I can be the facilitator of that healing. I can help them see a different way to be in their story. But they're the ones who are doing the healing. And that's when permanent healing happens. That's the key right there to permanent healing. If a client is with another healthcare practitioner who believes that they are the ones who are doing the healing, then I guarantee that client will never have full permanent healing, because they will always give their power over to that medical practitioner. It's the whole white coat syndrome. Right. You heal me, doctor. No, you heal you. Right. And you don't have to do it alone. That's where we come in. This is your team comes in. And
well, that's just it. And I mean, I had that experience for myself to know that with my own history of mental health and mental illness, or right, and in my young life, when I was only 20, diagnosed with bipolar or what do they call it, manic depressive, and depression back then, and it was hell. It was, my life was a living hell. I don't try to deny that. It wasn't easy. It was hard, in and out of institutions, etc. And really being diagnosed and being told basically by the people, the medical teams, that as I got older, it's only going to get worse, because that was the stats, and that's the way it is, and that's what I could expect.
Mm-hmm.
That was not exactly easy to listen to.
No.
And I decided, I just took matters into my own hands one day and said, does not have to be my future. There's got to be more.
Yeah.
And one of my first healing modalities, as everyone knows, is writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would just that's where I found my voice, was on a page, and I could just scream it out, yell it out, cry it out, whisper it out, poetry it out, play it out, and play it out I did in a play about dispelling the stigmas about mental illness, and gave myself that voice and that power. But for years and years and years, I felt completely defeated by what the doctors were telling me, what was my diagnosis and my prognosis, until I one day decided, no, it doesn't have to be the truth. I'm not that. I'm more than that. There's got to be other ways. And so I love the word that you love. I love resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
I have to wake up and practice the tools that I've learned to keep me healthy and resilient. And, do I still have whatever that DSM 345, whatever it is, the manual tells me I have? Maybe. Could be. I don't know. I know that, if I get overstressed, I can feel some of those old symptoms starting to kick in, but I have the tools and I refuse not to use them. Right? So I know that we have that ability, but we have to have that choice, because if we put the power on someone else to be responsible for my life, then it's just, how will I ever heal?
That's right. That's right. And
so I love what you're saying.
Something that's really important too is healing is very personal. Right? It's very personal. My idea of you being healed is irrelevant. It's irrelevant to your experience of being healed.
Right.
Like, I have no business telling you what it's going to look like when you're healed. You will get as good as you get, and you will create that experience for yourself. So when I talk to people and I say you can be healed, it's not like, I'm not, first of all, not doing the healing, and secondly, you get to decide for yourself what that healing looks like.
Absolutely. And that's a journey. That's a journey, right? I know for me that when I decided in various times in my life that this is the route that I'm going to take, and it's like outside the comfort zone, and it's quite extraordinary how the right people show up to help support and that new path, right? Who are aligned there, and the growth continues.
It does. And also the decision or the choice to go as far as you are comfortable going is really important too. For me, my work is all about empowerment. Mm-hmm. How can I help you see your potential? How can I help you see what you're capable of? How can I help you see you the way I see you? How can I help you with that? That's the empowerment piece of it. And then what does that look like for you? I had a client many years ago. I'll always remember her. She came to me and she walked in the door, and almost the first words out of her mouth were, I have fibromyalgia. And I said to her, so are you your fibromyalgia? Mm-hmm. And she looked at me, she said, I don't know what that means. No one's ever asked me that question before. I said, well, how willing are you to heal this fibromyalgia to the best of your ability and step into a different way of being in life? She told me all the things that she was experiencing with her fibromyalgia. And I get it. I've been given a diagnosis of fibromyalgia as well. I was thrilled when I got that diagnosis, by the way, just as a quick little side thing, because finally I had something I could work with. And I understood, okay, it's actually not all in my head, although some of it is, because some of it is about attitude and choices that we make and how are we in the world. what she said to me, and bless her, what she said to me was, I benefit from my fibromyalgia. I said, okay, sure you do. Tell me how you benefit from your
Oh, yeah.
fibromyalgia. And she said, well, I'm on permanent disability from work. If I heal my fibromyalgia, they're going to make me go back to work. I don't want to go back to work. I said, okay, then that's the trade-off.
Mhm.
That's the choice that you're making right now, is what you're telling me. This is the choice you're making. And it is more comfortable to be in pain and be uncomfortable because there's a financial security to that than it is to step out of that. I
Mhm.
said to her, so then how can I help you? Like, why are you here? And ultimately, at the end of the 2 or 3 sessions we had, she said, I'm here to learn that it's okay for me to make this choice. I need permission to make this choice. I said,
Beautiful.
okay.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Ultimately, you have to give yourself permission, but if it needs to come from an outside
Right.
source, I give you permission to be your diagnosis and to
Mhm.
benefit financially from that, because at this point in your life, that's what you need.
Right. Well, that was quite a profound awareness on her part,
Mm-hmm.
right? To be
Yeah.
able to say, no, there's a gain here. It's okay for me to do this because I don't want to go back to work, and
Yeah.
for all those reasons. And so that she had, and you just need permission that it was going to be okay. And well,
Yeah.
she found the right person. I remember years ago, someone said, a doctor or psychiatrist, but it was very wise. It was so insightful, even though I was, what? Never. I walk away and think about it. When I would get sick, there was nobody that was more on my side or champion than my mom. My
Mm-hmm.
mom, she used to go to the hospitals and don't you dare over medicate my daughter. She has a brilliant, beautiful mind. Don't you dare. Right. And she was there and she'd fight for me, whatever. But when things were normal, oh my gosh, that was not the case, nor was it growing up.
Right.
So some wise counselors once said, well, maybe that's why you get sick, is to have your mother's love,
Right.
for her to really show that. And the thought of that made me nauseous. Like, excuse me, why would I be doing that? I would go to those extremes. I would suffer this extreme to have my mom's love and to show that she can't. Well, maybe I did.
I think we all do in some way or another. And this comes back to that whole childhood piece, the inner child work. When we are born, even before we're born, when we're in utero,
Right.
we're already learning how it's going to be in our family of origin, that we are going to be able to receive love and acknowledgement. Those are the two building blocks of our understanding of ourself.
Mm-hmm.
When our early experiences from even before we can speak are teaching us that we get that when we behave in a certain way, then that's what we learn and that's what we bring into our adult lives. And the child gets to be in charge of our adult lives when we haven't yet done the work around releasing the child from that responsibility. So your
Right.
inner child, your little Junie, learned at an incredibly small age, probably when your mom was pregnant with you and she herself would feel unwell and receive attention for feeling unwell during a pregnancy, she passed that on to you.
Mm.
And what do you want more than anything in the world? What do any of us want more than anything in the world? Is to be loved and cherished and acknowledged and seen and accepted as we are, for who we are. That is a fundamental human desire and need. And
Oh
we will
gosh,
do
yes.
whatever we can to get it. And we will learn the ways that that is expected of us in our families.
Yes.
It's the cornerstone of most wounding, almost all wounding. I would say actually all wounding.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All
At the
wounding.
time when I first was given that information, it was, I would never do that. Do you know how much this, like, just didn't seem possible. It's not because I consciously decided,
Right.
oh, I'm going to get my mother to love me by being really ill and sick and can't get out of bed and have a mind that doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
No, but we'll do whatever we can. And like you said, until we relieve that child self of that responsibility,
Yeah.
it goes unconscious.
It
you
goes
know?
unconscious. And here's the really key thing. And for some of my clients, this has been that miracle healing moment for them, is when they
Uh-huh.
hear me say, you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. How brilliant of you to develop a coping mechanism that allowed you to get what you wanted, even when it shows up in a way that the conscious adult mind might say, no, no, I didn't do that. Well, no, yes, yes, you did, but you did it as a child because you had to. It's a coping mechanism. It's a survival skill that you learned. So
Absolutely.
good on you for figuring it out.
Right?
and then you can look at it from the perspective of, oh, okay, yes, I did that to keep myself safe. That was a good thing that I did, not a weak thing or a failure in any way. This is what I had to do to survive. I'm a survivor.
Exactly. And then from that place, and feeling like, right, okay, this was something that I needed to be safe, and now I can make a different choice. I
Yes.
don't need to do that now.
Now I can make a conscious
Now
choice.
there's aware, right,
Yeah.
right. Now there's that awareness.
Yeah. And
Wow.
what if it were just okay? You know, I love the what if questions. That's another thing that I love working with my clients is, what if it's okay that that's what you had to do? What if it's okay? And what if it's okay that 3 weeks from now you might get triggered into a similar response? What if it's
Yes.
okay? If you can let
Yes,
it be okay,
let it be okay.
to forgive yourself for it. Not that you need to forgive yourself, but if that's a place you feel like you need to go, then at least you can start working with that from that place of, yeah, I just did the best I could. Now
I
I'm a
love that, Megan. I
different.
love that you bring that, larger perspective of, yeah, and what if it even happens again? And yeah, would it be okay? Would
Yeah.
it be okay that you're doing the very best that you can? Yeah. And to let us, breathe out the stuff that doesn't serve us, like the guilt and the shame and the constant trying to get it right.
Yeah.
What if we were just to get up in the day and just say, oh, it's a brand new day.
Yeah.
Now let's just see what happens today.
So that's that point of responsibility, of self-responsibility, which is another cornerstone of my philosophy around healing. Other people do not have to agree with me. I don't need to be right about this, but for me, this
Mhm,
is what has worked and has worked for many of my clients, which
mhm.
is ultimately the only thing that I have any modicum of control over is how I show up in the world and how I choose to respond to the events in my life, whether I'm creating them or someone else around me is creating them. I find that very empowering, to take
Right.
on that self responsibility and to not say, he did that to me, you did that to me, you made me feel like that. No, it's about me being responsible for how I feel. And when I can do that, I release the other person and they can deal with their stuff, which gives me space to deal with my stuff. Right?
100%.
So powerful to have that recognition. It doesn't absolve somebody of their behavior. It doesn't absolve the other person of their responsibility for what they have done to you or have done to others, and it doesn't absolve you. There's a point of acknowledgement and acceptance. Oh, I did that. I acted like that. I said that to that person. Okay, part of my self-responsibility work is to acknowledge that that was for me and that I did that, and how can I make amends if amends are required? Is there
Right.
a necessity to make amends? It becomes part of a bigger conversation that you have with yourself.
I love that. And I subscribe to it as well. I
Yeah.
call it taking the high road.
Yeah.
And right. And because it is ultimately how we respond, because we're here on this earth plane.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always going to find that there will be challenges.
Yeah.
We don't, and no matter how well prepared we might be,
Mm-hmm.
we just don't know in the course of a day what could happen
Yeah.
from outside of us.
Yeah.
It's not something that we've gone out and deliberately done to cause that accident that happened
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it is a choice of how we either react or respond. It
Yeah.
is a choice.
What comes to mind around that really just pops in is it's okay to have a response. I'm not talking about contemplating my navel, I'm the highest form of, enlightened consciousness, and I'm not going to get angry, and I'm not going to feel sad. And no, it's the awareness that I am angry right now.
Mhm.
What I'm
Mhm.
experiencing is eliciting in me a response of anger, and that's okay, because anger can be a very motivating emotion. Things
Love
get
it.
done when we're
Mhm.
angry. Just social justice happens because people get angry about things that it's appropriate to be angry about, right?
Mhm.
Or it's
Mhm.
sad about, or
Mhm.
disillusioned about, or confused about. Like, we come here, I believe, to have these human experiences, to have these emotions in our bodies, to feel them, because,
Oh gosh, yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
when we're not in a corporeal form, if we're in our soul form or whatever you want to call it, we don't have bodies to give us these experiences.
Right.
For
No, it's
me,
so
the relationship with these experiences, with
absolutely.
emotions, yeah.
No, absolutely. Emotions are, I think, the most important thing of all. We
Yeah.
need to be able to express them.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's express them appropriately when I can, when
Yes.
I can.
Yeah.
For me, again, back to for my one of the ways in which I will help myself respond appropriately is journal. I
Mm-hmm.
will, and I tell this to my writing clients all the time, keep a journal and write angry, blaming, uncensored letters that you never send. And certainly don't put them in an email, press send. No, but get those emotions out in the body. And I know that when I do,
Mm-hmm.
and just everything, that often it's not even about that person. It's not even about that situation. I get to, to join the dots
Mm-hmm.
of what is really going on inside of me,
Yeah.
where I have felt disempowered before, or whatever. I see my part in it, or whatnot. Whatever it's going to do, it allows that emotion out when it is there.
Yeah.
And often by the time it comes to actually sharing that with someone, well,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I don't even have to,
Yeah.
because it's already been integrated. It's already gone through my body in a way, or I am not going to react because I'm more grounded
Yeah.
in what I've learned. So it's like taking that breath and responding
Mm-hmm.
and being able to do the next step of whatever it is. But yes, be angry, be belligerent, be whatever you are. And yes, it's only anger or what that will allow the social justice that, people who are going to protest the things that need to be protested because they are just so outside of any kind of justice.
Yeah.
What are we going to do it with Om? Yes, we can, on top of, and I maybe the Om underneath is that holding that magnificent energy,
Mm-hmm.
because I am so about that energy and that love, and let it be that foundation,
Yeah.
and use your voice in a grounded way where people can hear. I have a friend, well, she's passed, that Davida, when she was alive, and I learned this many, many years from her. When things would escalate, she would become silent,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
she would bring her voice down even more and more and more.
Yeah.
And there's huge power in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is.
You can start to hear one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, this is so awesome. I love having these conversations with you.
Me
And
too.
this is, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Megan, what do we think is the future in terms of health and wellness, and how we can empower others to, empower themselves and one another? What do you think is in store for us moving
My
forward?
hope, my hope is that more people have more conversations like the one that we're having today,
Mm,
where we're really acknowledging all the benefits from any one way of doing things. Integration is a really great word as well. I love that word, integration. And there is integrative medicine now, in the US, in Canada. There's a fight ahead of us. I do believe this to be true, because there are powers that are threatened for whatever reason with integrative medicine, with alternative medicine, with holistic medicine, with medicines that look at and use the plants that are freely available, that are not the big money makers. So there is a fight ahead of us, because there's a lot of money and a lot of power that's been invested in providing humanity with certain types of medication and teaching people that that is the only way to go. So yeah, and that's not a conspiracy theory. That's something that's actually happening. There are governments in North America, there are governments in Canada that are trying to pass legislation to limit, if not completely be done with, any kind of medicine that isn't the controlled narrative of medicine. There are also millions of people around the world, billions of people around the world, who don't see that as the only option, as the only way to have to be in health and wellness. And those voices, especially in the current climate, are collaborating with one another, are speaking out, are finding platforms where they're not being censored, where they can help other people see that there's possibilities outside of what is currently mainstream being presented to us. Mm-hmm. So my hope, as the eternal optimist that I am, is that we can have conversations that are intelligent, that are critical thinking and conversations, that are integrative conversations, that allow an approach to healing that is a wholesome, holistic approach to healing. And I think because there are enough voices of people who feel that that's really important, we're not going to get trampled under. We're going to have that voice, and that the future holds a potential for medicine to change so that it is supportive of the client instead of supportive of the medical oligarchy. That's what I hope and see as a
well, you've got my vote on that. And yeah, and my collaboration, because I really do believe that that is where we're heading.
Yeah,
I trust that in my heart. I just know. And so, of course, those who feel that they need to withhold the old anarchy ways, the ways that just are so, I think that's crumbling. Mm-hmm. And so they'll try even harder, like anything will, to survive.
Yeah.
And so it may get darker before it gets brighter or not. I don't know. I know that because of technology today,
yeah,
nothing is a secret for a second,
yeah,
longer than it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And everything that is, we have our trusty cameras that will show and what's going on in moments, and it will go viral, as we have seen, mm-hmm. Again and again and again. That will bring justice again and again and again. And I think the younger people today are not tolerating what we've left them with this earth, in terms of climate change, in terms of endangered species, in terms of crooked politicians, in terms of whatever it happens to be. Mm-hmm. They want a fair chance. Mm-hmm. And so I think more and more young people are speaking up, and I think that is giving me tremendous hope in the future. Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say also that the alternative old guard and the younger new guard are also having conversations together.
Yes.
So my generation, people of your generation, people who have seen a lot and have a perspective that is a longer perspective than someone who is 17 or 18, and just simply by virtue of how old they are, haven't yet seen the long term. We need both perspective. Again, it's building bridges,
100%, absolutely. And I believe that communication is possible for everyone. And when we understand, as a psychotherapist, I remember years ago, one of the first books that was required reading was, oh gosh, now that I said it, will I remember her name and the name of the book? I think it's Thou Shalt Not Be Aware, Alice Miller. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the book. She's written some incredible books that have been translated. I believe it's from German to English. And so she did a case history of Hitler as a child. And if you don't think about him as the monster that he turned into being, and you just see the home in which this child was raised, then you will have compassion for the child. And if things happen to be ripe, which they were in that era and that country, the horrors that transpired because of that kind of upbringing, and with not even one person there to hold space for that child, you can forget for a little while,
right,
that what transpired, and just have tremendous compassion. So if we start off that way, and we start, like you said before, one of the most important things in the world is acknowledgement, love, acknowledgement, to be able to caring. When somebody that's been seen and heard and acknowledged, that is so important. And when we can have a conversation, and even those people that are so not on our turf, to be able to hear and respectfully, that's one of the hardest things still sometimes for me. It's like, what? You're saying what?
yeah,
What?
yeah,
Really? You really think that? But I've seen the change. In me years ago, and I'll just give a brief example. When I lived in Montreal many, many years ago, in my 20s, at a time when the Québécois were, which is the French part of the government, wanted Quebec to separate, and also be that province would be completely French. Well, as an English-speaking person, and also having a French boyfriend and coming from Ontario and not speaking French, it was one of the most difficult times in my life. So difficult, because I couldn't even say the word, anything, without making a mistake. And Michelle, a beautiful, beautiful human being, would translate his broken English into, from the French, from what I was saying to his friends. And he had a lot of friends, and they really, I was English. And so I was like the enemy in some ways. When they got to know me, they came to love me, and respect me, and I respected them, and we got to speak. And it was so important for me to somehow find a way in. And so I found that way in, and little by little, those defenses came down. They'd never met anybody before who was English and actually sat in their kitchen.
right.
And on top of that, Jewish. They didn't really know people, that were Jewish, other than, the storekeeper or whatever. And so I had two strikes against me in that particular culture at that time. The Jews killed Jesus. I mean, I didn't know that I did that. Apparently, I had to apologize. I'm sorry, I don't remember having had that, but basically by making fun of something, but it was very ingrained in that belief, in that time, and in that culture.
Yeah.
And when people got to know, oh, well, you're not that, or you're not this, or you're not and that's where prejudice starts. It's what we've been told. It's what we've been told to believe.
And it's
and
powerful.
to strip out the layers of all of what whatever the religions or the politicians or whoever tell us what we're supposed to believe, and just communicate heart to heart in a real way. I'm not talking woo-woo. I'm just talking about being real. It's amazing how far a conversation can get. Can go.
So it comes back to community, collectivism, cooperation, collaboration.
Right.
And there have been in the last 18 months, some huge divides have been encouraged. I would say branded and marketed. Isolation has become the norm. Not allowed to gather for various reasons, and we won't go into all the why of that, but that has an effect and an impact. It creates a wounding. So part of the healing that needs to happen over the next little while is coming back together.
Oh, 100%. That isolation has been, I think, the most difficult.
It's not good for your immune system, everybody. Just saying.
Not good for
We're a social creature. We need each other.
That's right.
We need each other, and it's not just at the emotional and energetic level. It's actually at the physical level, because our bodies don't stop here.
Right.
We actually, we increase our immune system when we are together, because we are sharing believe it or not, we're sharing the antibodies that we've created in our body to help fight viruses and bacteria. We know this is a science fact. So when we gather together, we boost each other's immune system actually at the physical level. When we're isolated and that isolation is not of our own volition, our immune system gets depressed and then we are more susceptible.
Right.
And we've seen the results.
And being a full collective body, that works together, if whatever's going on in the cells, and they're also are encouraged whatever by the thinking.
Yeah.
And if we're becoming depressed because we're so isolated and we're not allowed to see our grandmother who's in the hospital, and we're not, or our mother or our father or our loved one or a friend, or just go to the playground, or just go to a coffee shop and be with the people that we're used to being with, or our colleagues at work, and all of those things, then that isolation can have huge, serious consequences. And and I've talked about this already in a podcast that I was, or a summit that I was part of in terms of suicide prevention recently. The numbers have escalated across the globe, especially in youth, more than ever. So there are so many things that this shutdown has been responsible for. And yet it goes back to the choices that we make within ourselves, and how we can stay connected, and how we can be kind to ourselves, and how we can reach out when we need to. And there's so many modalities of healing.
Yeah.
And I am one like you. I am a cockeyed optimist. That's a song from South Pacific. Just a cockeyed optimist. Anyway, I'll go into song and dance if I could. And I do really believe that on the positive side of this shutdown, or forced, need to be at home, is for people who have really are starting to think in ways that we haven't before. If we're just doing same old Groundhog Day, same old, not really giving much attention to it, hating our job, but we go there anyway because we don't know there's another way. I have seen more creativity spark over these last 16, 18, I don't even know how many months it's been, of where we've had to reinvent ourselves, and people are thinking about what really matters and making different decisions for themselves. So in that way, I think lots of good things are going to come from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who have been traumatized, and many have, they can move through that. That can heal. That absolutely.
Speaking of that, honey,
yep.
How can people find you?
They can find me through my website, which is www.meganedge.ca. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on YouTube. I have a beautiful YouTube channel with tons of resources, lots of videos, lots of podcasts, my radio show, which is called Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, my own podcast, which is called Magic, Mystery, and Medicine. And then all the workshops that I've ever done, all the classes I've taught, everything is there. So someone can go there for free and just enjoy it all. And then if they want to go deeper, they can reach out to me through email. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me, I think I said LinkedIn already, Megan Edge Healing. Put me into Google, Grandma Google, Megan Edge Healing, and you'll find me. Send me an email. Best way to reach me.
All right. And they'll find you right here at Soul Connections Podcast.
Yeah. Oh, and my Etsy shop. I'm opening an Etsy shop.
Oh, tell us about that.
Yes. Okay, I'll tell you quickly. So over the last 2 years, I've been making these amazing products, these balms and salves and tinctures and teas from nature, from the medicines of nature, from the tree resins, from the needles, from different plants. And I've been making all of these, and I've been selling them here and there and everywhere. But somebody finally said to me, more people need to have access to these. You need to open up an Etsy shop. So within the next couple of weeks, the shop will be open. The products will be available. I ship worldwide, and I am just so excited to start sharing these incredible healing products to help support people on their journeys, whatever that journey looks like. So that's coming.
Congratulations. That's huge. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have been blessed as a recipient of many of your healing salves over the years. And I can attest to the strength and the potency and the healing power of what goes into what you make. And yeah, with your hands, and because of your knowledge and what you do, and the love that you infuse in every vessel that you container you put them in.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled for you
Thank
of this brand new venture.
Mhm.
So okay, well, Megan, thank you so much. What a privilege to talk to you
Mm.
today.
Thank you, Junie. And thank you for having this platform for people to come forward and have a voice. It's so important.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Hey.